A very warm welcome to all our digital audience right now who are joining us on this program, and for our TV audiences in the Caribbean, all I can say is welcome back. Now that's the match summary for those of you who missed out on that. Afghanistan batting first, 207 is what they got. They got a half century there from Zadran, and then Shah looked the best batsman of the lot with 43. Pat Cummins with 3 wickets, so did Adam Zampa pick up 3 wickets. Australia on the other hand, 89 not out for David Warner. He also ended up as the man of the match. A timely knock there for Aaron Finch with 66. With me, Daren, Ganga, Murali, Kartik, Alexis Nunes live from Bristol. Also, Brad Hord joining us from Australia. Brad, I'll come straight to you. This was a ploy that you expected Afghanistan to use, get Mujib to begin with, and I'm guessing it was for the left-hander in David Warner, but Finch then took most of the strike. Do you think that was part of the plan from the Australian team?
Look, it may have been. They would have discussed it maybe. And look, according to Aaron Finch, David Warner's one that just walks up and says, right, I'm taking the first ball on most occasions. But this may have been discussed. Maybe the huge stage in which they were coming back, Finchy just would have said, listen, I'll take this one. And didn't he put him to the sword in the first over? Took him for 10 in the first over, and that was the end of it. It looked like Australia were going to cruise ever since that moment. That fear factor of the spin was taken away in that one moment, allowed David Warner to settle into the game, and Finchy got off to a fly and kept the foot down and took the game away in the first half an hour.
Right, Finch was the aggressor, Kartik, at that time. Mujib bowled 2 overs, went for plenty. Warner smartly getting off the strike to begin with, as we were talking. But could the captain, the Afghanistan captain, have done something differently? If Mujib was going for a bit, maybe bring on Nabi at that time. Nabi came in the 9th over. I mean, you had to try something with that shot.
To be very honest, I thought that Nabi would have been a better option to start off with, because Mujibur Rahman, even every time I've seen him bowling with the new ball, he's not been as effective as Nabi is. Nabi is a finger spinner, and sometimes with the mystery spin, you don't get the ball to land the way Nabi does, and he's a lot more craftier when it comes to bowling in the power play. So you're absolutely right. I, for one, thought that Mohammad Nabi should have started off. Yeah, these are the games where you're trying to do a few things. 208 against a mighty opponent, you want to try something. Can you make inroads? Because that's the way to actually push the team back. If you're going to sit on your haunches and then think that they're going to just restrict them, that's never happening. So yeah, from that point of view, I completely agree with you.
Dan, what do you make? Why wouldn't a Naib bring on a Nabi? And he's done it in the past. We've seen it in the IPL. You give him the new ball, gets you the wicket.
Look, my take on this is David Warner is a complete player. A guy like Nabi wouldn't be so much of a threat to him. If you look at his record, I mean, it stands up as the best in the world in terms of one-day cricket. 5 ODI scores in excess of 150, a near 50 average, 14 ODI centuries. So I don't think that will be high on David Warner's mind. I think what we've seen from him in the recent times is a more responsible David Warner, understanding his game more, playing according to the situation. His strike rate was just, about 80, so he wasn't taking any unnecessary risks, because he recognized how very important this World Cup is to Australia and to himself individually and personally as a player, given what he's gone through. So I don't think that would have been a big threat. I think having a big score at the end of the day and ensuring that Australia crosses the line without any sort of concern would have been the highest priority for David Warner, and not necessarily the threat from the Afghanistan bowlers.
Sorry,
yeah, so, but that's completely understandable. What he's saying is that couldn't Afghanistan have tried?
Yeah.
Whether David Warner is a good player or not, you can't put your arms down and say, oh, we're not here for a fight.
Yeah.
So what?
Surrender in that sense,
you could have tried something different. Who's the better option to bowl? That's exactly it.
Today, clearly, I mean, I'm just going to talk about Warner. It's the slowest half century that he's got in one-day cricket. So clearly wasn't really high on confidence. I don't know whether it had something to do with him coming back into international cricket. At that moment, you know that there is some sort of a weakness there. Exploit it. Maybe a Nabi could have done it.
Yeah, I possibly think that is the way to go for Afghanistan, because spin bowling is definitely their strength. But what we've seen from this World Cup so far is that seam bowlers, they've been most effective in terms of wicket taking. So I think the Naib, the captain himself, if you look at his record, he's up there with the top 5 bowlers in terms of wicket takers in the middle overs. So maybe, he only picked up 1 wicket, but it will always be difficult for this Afghanistan bowling lineup to get wickets and to put this Australian team under pressure, especially when you score a total of just over 200. I think this is what everyone expected, a sort of one-sided contest, and I think Australia just got the result that we all expected.
Okay, I'd love to talk about that Afghanistan bowling lineup. Could they have done something different? As Daren is saying, it at the end was a no contest. Australia the runaway winners. But could they have done something, experimented a few things there? We'll talk about that. But for the moment, I'll go across to Alexis back again. She's still live with us from Bristol. Alexis, I know you were giving a big prop up for your West Indian boys. They, scored 400 plus when the last time they played on this Bristol cricket ground. That was a warm-up game versus New Zealand, 400 plus for them. But Australia today, I know they didn't get 400, but were very well on their way to have gotten the 400. Did the Aussies also show you that they are as strong a batting lineup as the West Indies, or as dangerous a batting lineup as the West Indies, if not even more dangerous?
Well, it's funny that you should say that, Nikhil, because while we were watching the match and I was sitting down with Jared Kimber, he has to work very hard right now, so he's at the players' press conferences right now, but he'll definitely join us a little later for some other stuff. But he was saying, you know what? I think that the West Indies can beat this Australia team. And I almost said, what? Because, Daren knows he shares the stresses of supporting the West Indies every now and again. And even that match against Pakistan, I don't think anyone really expected the West Indies to be that destructive, and one of the main things that we were worried about for the West Indies was the bowling. I spoke to Mikey Holding just the day before, and he was like, you know what, I'm not really 100% comfortable, not even probably 80% comfortable with this West Indies bowling attack. And then when they fielded the team and we saw that Kamar Roach wasn't even in it, I also said, wait, what is going on here? But then they came out absolutely destructive. I was absolutely left in awe. We know that Pakistan, much like the West Indies, can be quite unpredictable on their day, but I think Jason Holder had said that we're used to this underdog tag, and now we've sort of accepted it and kind of know how to flourish with it, and that's something that I think will come into play with this matchup against Australia. I mean, we didn't even get to see the rest of the batting lineup for Australia, and we didn't need to, but David Warner is in destructive form. Steve Smith still looked quite comfortable there. Aaron Finch looked quite comfortable as well, as being the defending champions and captaining in his first World Cup here. So I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think we will see more fireworks from the West Indies boys. It will be interesting to see if they do tinker with the order. We spoke to Andre Russell to see where he's more comfortable batting. But I think I would mess with it right now, and it's going to be an interesting competition. Let me just say that now, while I cross my toes, fingers, heart, everything.
Well, we sure hope so, because we've seen 4 games till now. They've been completely one-sided. Alexis Nunes, thanks so much for joining us. We'll let you go now. We know you're a big football fan. There's a big game coming up tonight, so go grab yourself a nice seat in one of the pubs close by. You can enjoy that encounter. Thanks so much for joining us. But I'm just coming back to that whole discussion that we were having of what is it that Naib could have done. Now, the other point is he had another weapon, his best weapon, in Rashid. Comes in at the 14th over. Yeah. Would you have been tempted to have used him a little earlier?
Yeah, I think that is always an option. Bowling your slow bowlers within the power play, the first power play is always an option. I think the surface as well didn't allow for a lot of spin. Maybe Rashid Khan could have been a little more, I would say, wily with the way in which he bowled. He was a little too flat in my estimation. When you're coming up against good players and on good batting friendly conditions, you may want to flight the ball, use the angles a little bit more, change your pace up. I just felt he was a little too flat, and Kartik will know that if you want to extract spin, you've got to give the ball some time in the air and try to get some revs on it.
Was he bowling a little quicker than usual?
Look, that's his natural style, but what you can do and what you can tinker with is the kind of fields you said, the kind of things you make the batsman think, because 208, if Australia bat normally, they're going to always get it. So how are you trying to get them? Trying to get them by playing a bit of an ego battle with a few batsmen, trying to set the kind of fields which you know are risk and reward. And over here, it can only be reward, because if they take a risk and something happens, then you get a wicket. Otherwise, if they're going to play normal cricket, they're just going to cruise these kind of scores on a pretty good surface. So from that point of view, in such run-restricted games, I think the opposition have to try different things. The bowlers have to try, and they have to believe that by setting these fields and trying to do a few things, again, you have to bowl to your strengths. Rashid Khan, if he tries to bowl slowly, that's not his strength. If some slow bowler, if Ramesh Pawar tries to bowl fast, that's not his strength. So you have to stick to your strength, but again, play with the mindset of the batsman, play with the fields, and just try and do something to price a wicket.
You have to keep experimenting. Brad, I'll come to you as Kartik is saying, you're going to try something new and nothing's really working out for you. But what does one do versus a David Warner? One way of getting him out is when he's his usual aggressive self. That's one opportunity that you get against him. But if he's come up with a mindset, as he did in the game today, where he really wanted to spend time on the pitch, no matter what bowler you got, you don't have too much of a chance to really get him out. Would you agree?
No, you don't. And I guess that, the guys are talking about trying to be creative and whether you can put a slip in or a silly point at some stage. But realistically, the bottom line is that 208 was never going to be enough against this mighty Australian unit. And they've left probably an opportunity to score off another 90-plus balls. And if Afghanistan had have got a total of 285, 300, then that scoreboard pressure wouldn't have allowed David to play in the manner which he would have. So, there's little lessons from from Afghanistan's side how to create that pressure, and for them, they're going to have to find a way which is going to post a total which is going to be a lot more competitive than 208. So, when you're a captain and you're short stacked and you only got a small total on the board, no conditions there which are going to help. There's no swing, there's no spin. You try and be as creative as you possibly can, but realistically, your back's up against the wall, and there's not a great deal you can do apart from a few bowling changes here and there. But
right.
That's about it.
Okay, one final comment from you, Brad, before we let you go. I'm just going to go back to the Australian bowling. Adam Zampa picked up those 3 wickets but went for plenty of runs. And I know at the moment this Afghanistan batting lineup isn't the strongest. How do you see his tournament progressing for them? Something that he needs to work on going ahead?
Yeah, he wasn't at his best today, actually. So, whether it was the dimensions of the ground which threw him off a little bit, he wasn't consistent, didn't extract a lot of turn, but he never does anyway. It's more his consistent line of length, which will be a bit of a concern for Aaron Finch and Justin Langer. But I think he'll fight back. He's been in pretty good touch. Maybe one of those days where the ball just didn't come out of the hand just the way he wanted to. But still, all in all, picked up a couple of crucial wickets, and that's all you can ask for.
All right, Brad Hodge, thanks so much for joining us at this late hour or early morning, as I'm saying. But it was worth staying up because Australia had a dominating performance against Afghanistan. We'll see you again during the course of this tournament. You're watching ESPN Cricinfo Match Day. We'll take a short break at the moment, but plenty more coming up on the other side.
Cricket, life, and everything in between. 25 questions with Rashid Khan. If you could meet one sports person from another sport, who would it be?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Who is the best bowler you have ever faced?
Best bowler I have faced, Sunil Narine.
Your favorite fielding position?
Mid-off and mid-on.
If you weren't a cricketer, what would you be?
I would be a doctor.
One record that you'd love to have?
I would love to have passes 50.
Favorite holiday destination?
Maldives.
If you could bowl to one player from history, who would it be?
Sachin Tendulkar.
If you could watch one match from history, what would it be?
The match which was played between South Africa and Australia when they chased 434.
Best captain you've played under?
Asghar Sanakzai.
If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Barbecue.
Your favorite ODI performance?
You're watching ESPN Cricinfo Match Day. We're talking about the game between Afghanistan and Australia. Now, if Afghanistan had any chance of making this sort of comeback in this game, they had their 3 spinners to do that. But unfortunately for them, all the 3 spinners didn't have a great outing. We'll take a look at how spinners have performed in the tournament so far. This is a comparison between spinners and fast bowlers in the 4 matches that we've seen in the Cricket World Cup 2019, and the difference there is stark. You've seen pacers pick up 42 wickets, spinners just 10, and you can see the average there as well. There's a big difference there, and then the economy of pacers also doing really, really well. Up until now, Kartik, whatever we've seen of it, and we've seen some good spinners on display already. I'm just talking about this game. You had the Zampa, you had Rashid Khan, nothing really working out for the spinners. Maybe later part of the tournament, not for the moment.
Look at the games that have panned out so far. It's just the kind of surfaces as well. At Nottingham, it's just the pacers ruling the roost. We saw the way England bowlers bowled and the South African bowlers bowled as well. There was hardly any contest or hardly any requirement for most spinners at most places. Possibly today, when you talk about Afghanistan, you would think that, I'm completely agree with Haji. I think for a side like Afghanistan with 3 of those spinners, if they have enough runs on the board, then they can make a lot of, inroads into the opposition. It's a different sort of a feel, because when you're always bowling with a restricted field and you got at the back of your mind that every single run is going to be taken, or every single run actually allows the opposition to come back into the game, you never bowl with the kind of freedom you have as a bowler. So yeah, you're right. There's a part of it which might think that as the wickets get used and as the wickets tire, you'll possibly have spinners. But look, there have been one-sided games, and one-sided games dominated by pace. So it's too early to compare spin versus pace at the moment.
Okay, if spinners aren't doing the job for you, now team selection is a completely different matter. Now you've gone with the team. You had someone like Hassan who was bowling rather well, the veteran that you have. I can remember someone like Warner edging there. If they had a second slip, you would have been out pretty early. When you're defending a low total, would you have expected a little more from the Afghan captain?
You've got to make a decision. You've got to be attacking. Try to break the opposition by getting early wickets, set attacking fields. As we've seen, the seamers, key for seamers, height, pace, bounce. And if you look at this Afghanistan team, maybe Hamid alone had a little bit of pace. The others were medium pacers, so would not have troubled the Australians.
I'm just going back to Afghanistan. Could they have done something differently? As he's saying, probably been a bit more aggressive to begin with. Maybe try different bowlers. They could have gone with that. But unfortunately, in
games like this, what again, you don't have time to restrict. You just need to either you lose it in 25 overs, or you lose it in 50 overs.
All right, that's all time that we have for you for the moment. That's all that we have on our show for the Caribbean audience, but our show will continue for our digital audiences. All right, just getting back to that discussion now, and you were making a point. I'm just saying different things that he could have tried. One was be a bit more aggressive in his field placement.
As I said, you have to create kind of things which you have to play around with the fields, play around with the batsman's mindset. And again, if you're thinking that, we are going to shackle them up and then win the game in the 40th over, that's not going to happen. These games, if you have the collective belief that we are going to try and be positive, try and create wickets by being creative, either you get wickets or you lose the game in 20-25 overs. So there are no marks for losing, extra marks for losing game in the 36th over. You can have a moral feeling that, we did well, we pushed Australia till the 36th over, but you're trying to win. If Afghanistan has come into the World Cup, if they want to create a few upsets, and especially from situations like this, any captain or anybody has to be a lot more creative and try and be more attacking. You're not restricting 105, which Pakistan got. You're not restricting what Sri Lanka did today. All you can do is just be out and out positive.
Hindsight is always 20/20 vision, and you're someone who said that. Now the weakness for Afghanistan is their batting. Would you now change things around when you go? Plenty of all-rounders there. Maybe now time for that spinner to go, that third spinner?
Well, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, you strengthen your bowling and it weakens your batting, and that is why I advocated for 2 of the 3 top spinners in this Afghanistan team to play against Australia, because you don't want to have a situation where you have an extra bowler or you have an additional bowler without that sort of firepower in your batting. So that is something that Afghanistan will need to look at in terms of their combination that they use. Again, I think coming out of this match, they could take heart that they pushed Australia to the 35th over. We've seen Pakistan crumble, we've seen Sri Lanka crumble, so that's confidence for Afghanistan going in. Australia is the defending champions of this World Cup, so they've got to target teams and they've got to play aggressive cricket and fearless cricket If you look at this graphic in terms of openers dismissed for a duck, when you look at this Afghanistan team, Mohammad Shahzad, he's the most prolific one-day player. He didn't score in this game. So to get that consistency, to have him thinking positively despite failing against Australia, those are the sort of things that you need to set right for Afghanistan to probably get a win going forward.
It's very, very rare that you have both openers getting out for a duck. It's only happened 5 times in the World Cup, and it happened for Afghanistan. But after that, they had a good recovery, especially that partnership of 83 runs between Zadran and then the captain Naib. The only, drawback there, or the way they approached that particular partnership, was you got someone like Stoinis, you're whacking him for 6 runs, and then you gift him 2 wickets. You're in a situation from there, you could have very well got, 270 odd? They didn't really kick on from there.
Yeah, we've seen that kind of immaturity with quite a few seasoned teams as well. So you have to give that extra leeway to somebody like Afghanistan.
Sri Lanka.
Yeah, sometimes see, when you're sitting in the comforts of the comm box, sometimes we forget the fact that when the adrenaline rush is there, when you've pumped somebody for 2 sixes, you feel this guy is gettable today, and you end up going with the same flow. And that's where you need the calm head of someone and just say, look, we have maximized what we could. We have to be there till the end, and let's just take 1 over at a time, just build another partnership, let's have small targets. And that's why some teams are really successful, because they've got those kind of players, those mature heads who are there to shepherd people around. And they did go wrong. So you have to give that to immaturity sometimes.
A quick word, because the same question I posed to Daren about now, what do you do going forward for Afghanistan? They'd have to look at, would you not drop a spin? I'm saying that because there are plenty of all-rounders there who can bowl a bit of spin. You've got the other, Zadran here, got runs today, can also get you that some spin. There are about 5 all-rounders who can
Look,
really
it's a tough one. It's a catch-22 situation, because at the end of the day, when you want to say if you do cut a spinner and bring another batsman. But the thing is, the responsibility has to be taken by the top 4-5. You can't expect to pick a number 11 as the best batsman and then expect the others to and expect the number 11 to get runs. It's like asking the batsman to do a different job. They need to do the job of a batsman. They need to take extra responsibility and get the number of runs, or think in a different way. It's not just about going gung-ho about blazing away and losing your way. I think it's a question of taking responsibility, taking the onus, and again, they have to work it out. They have their team. Can they find another batsman who can bowl a bit? Do they have the quality of these 3 spinners?
All right, we're done with game number 4. That was Afghanistan versus Australia. Let's take a look at game number 5 that's coming your way. That is, you've got South Africa taking on Bangladesh, and the most talked about question right now, I'll pose that to Daren Ganga. Will we finally see a competitive game this World Cup?
We're hoping for that. So far, I think that first game was competitive.
But are these 2 teams that can give you that competitive game?
Bangladesh is, this is the first game for them in this World Cup. South Africa will want to set things right after that loss against England. Some areas of their game they would want to address. Their batting definitely, in terms of their planning and their bowling, went very well against England. So they would want to have a good game. Bangladesh is no walkover team, I must say. They play together. That big 5 who've been a part of this one-day team for Bangladesh, their captain, all of these guys, they've been, playing international cricket for a long time. They know the opposition teams. They are familiar with conditions here in England, so you can't write them off. They could just turn up and surprise a few people in this World Cup.
All right, we're just taking a look at the head-to-head record between these 2 teams since that last World Cup in 2015. South Africa hold the edge, having won 4, and Bangladesh has got 2. But the challenge for South Africa now, if you were to look at that, the earlier game, you had to be content with fast bowlers, in the England camp. This time there'll be plenty of spinners, and good spinners at that, in Bangladesh. So complete different challenge for South Africa now.
I think the only good spinner I can think of is Shakib Al Hasan, who's been
Mehdi
a top
Hasan?
Mehdi Hasan is okay. He's not a Graham Swan there, but yeah, look, slow bowlers is how I would look at them, and oval is a good track. From a South African point of view, I think they're still sweating on Dale Steyn's fitness. I think their team combination revolves around if Steyn's playing, because then they've got 3 real high quality bowlers, and then to add Lungi Ngidi, can they play someone else? Because over here, Dwayne Pretorius, he's a good player, but is he an out and out bowler? Is he an out and out batsman? It doesn't happen that way. Aidan Markram, Van Dusen in the same side, do they have the same kind of firepower? If a David Mellick can be brought in, if Steyn is not there, do they still go with Dwayne Pretorius or does Chris Morris get in a game? So these are the kind of things which even Faf du Plessis alluded to in the post-match press conference. He was confused as a captain. Sometimes you go by the pecking order, go by the way the selection has happened. So it's not about just the spin bowlers. I think it's just a question of you wanting to get your act together, you being clear in your head that this is the team going forward, and then doing the job for them, because they're a quality side, South Africa.
As Kartik mentions about Dale Steyn, now we'll have to see whether he's fit at the moment or not, whether he will be part of that playing 11. Talking about fitness, there's some sort of fitness concern for Tamim Iqbal as well, as far as the Bangladesh team is concerned. But the kind of reports that we're getting from England, that he should be fit and should make the playing 11, and they need him. Just this is the best batting average for openers in ODI since 2017, and he's at the 3rd spot there, averaging 60, right behind Rohit Sharma and Shai Hope. We saw South Africa come up with a plan for those explosive English openers. What should be the plan versus someone like Tamim Iqbal?
Well, what he's shown so far is he's got the ability to bat through 50 over innings, and when he does that, that's when Bangladesh is most successful and most competitive. He has experience. Mahmudullah, he's got 2 hundreds in World Cup cricket, so he's another experienced player that will have to support him. There's Liton Das and a few younger players who have not had the opportunity to play World Cup, but I think I mentioned the big 5. You know, the keeper, Rahman, is so crucial. Shakib Al Hassan as well, his all-round skills. Those are the 5 players that they will look to in the bowling department. Mashrafi, Mortaza is crucial for him to contribute with the ball. Not just as a leader. Yes, he's had his fitness challenges, but all these guys are so crucial for driving this Bangladesh team into a successful unit.
We're getting to hear from the South African camp after the loss that they had against England. The one thing that's really standing out at the moment, they're talking about getting to know the conditions well. We heard Faf du Plessis say that. Quinton de Kock came out the other day, said, we've played one game in the Oval, now we know what is it that we're going to encounter. Does that really give them some sort of advantage now?
Yeah, absolutely. You've played one game at a place which is a good place for batting. You understand the dimensions well. You've played a tough game as well. It's not an easy game against possibly the best opponent in the competition in their own backyard, and managed to pull them back as well. If you saw at one stage, they could have gotten to 350, 360, but the way the South African bowlers came back. So it'll be interesting how South Africa approach their second game. Yes, definitely. That is what you want to do. Why do teams get ahead of tours and wanting to acclimatize to situations? You're acclimatizing to a country. Over here, you've managed to play a big game on the same ground and against a lesser opponent, not to be taken lightly, but still familiarity will help.
We'll have to wait and see whether South Africa make any changes to the playing 11. I won't get our 2 experts to talk about that today because we have plenty of time to discuss that tomorrow as well. But for the moment, thanks so much for your company. Cheers. We were looking back at that game that was between Australia versus Afghanistan. Up until now, we've seen 4 games. All 4 games have been one-sided encounters. But tomorrow is another day. Bangladesh taking on South Africa. Will we get our first ever competitive match for the World Cup? The signs are there. The 2 teams are there. We'll have to just wait and watch. Thanks so much for joining us.